Strobe Studios presents Michael Helgens and Greg Kilberger in The Watson Files. Coming to you from the ever-impressive Strobe Studios in the heart of America, this is Craig Dahlen. And now, let's join the doctor and see what story he has for us today.
Come in. Craig, get up on that chair there.
All right, but why?
When I awoke from my nap a moment ago, I thought I saw something move across the floor.
Like a mouse or something?
Whatever it was, I'm sure it's gone now, but you'll forgive me if I tell you this week's story from my perch up here.
Sure, but you don't mind if I sit.
It's your choice, but you do so at your own risk. You'll understand what I mean in a little while.
All right, so what happened that's got you all up in arms?
Holmes came by my office to ask me to join him on a drive into the country. I was with a patient when he came, and since then I've gathered that he had some trouble with my secretary.
Excuse me, is the doctor in?
He is, Mr. Holmes, but he is with a patient.
Ah, well, is he just back through this door then?
Yes, but you know you can't go back there. We've been through this.
It's Sandy, right?
Margaret.
Right, Margaret, you do have a lovely name.
That you can never seem to remember.
That doesn't make it any less lovely. Can I get you some coffee?
Spilling coffee on me only worked that first time. I have plenty to drink, thank you very much.
I see, Margaret. We both know that I'm going to find a way to get through to the doctor in short order. Why don't we skip our little game this time, and you can delight in the fact that you didn't get outsmarted this once.
Mr. Holmes, if you try to go through that door before Dr. Watson is done with his patient, I promise you that you'll be very sorry.
No, Margaret, there's no cause for such hostility. I'm here on an urgent matter. I assure you that the doctor will want to see me right away. That you kept his oldest friend waiting will cause some strife between the two of you, I'm afraid.
It's a risk I'll have to take. Sit down, please, Mr. Holmes.
You're very good at this job, Margaret, but I'm afraid that I must insist that you summon the doctor at once.
Holmes, what are you doing here?
Thank you for seeing my point of view at last, Margaret. I'm sorry that you have to taste defeat.
But
It's all right, Margaret. You were no match for my quick wit. No need to feel inadequate. Come, Watson, I have a case and I require your services.
Holmes, I have many appointments today.
Watson, you'll not want to miss this one. I feel quite sure of it.
Oh, all right. Margaret, will you please reschedule the rest of my appointment and see Mr. Mitchell out when he is finished dressing?
Yes, Doctor.
Well, what's the case?
As I said, I think you'll find it particularly interesting, but we really must hurry. Your secretary was annoyingly persistent in her efforts to delay our departure, so much that I'll need to explain in the car.
Very well. Just let me get my hat. Well, what's the matter?
We're on our way to find out the crux of the problem, Watson, but that begins in the apartments of a very comely young woman.
A woman? I'm intrigued.
Are there other matters in which you are so intently interested, Watson?
Holmes,
Oh, come now, Watson, I'm only joking. Here is where the young lady asked that we meet her when she had concluded some business in the city.
Well, let's not keep her waiting.
You must be Mr. Holmes.
Good morning, madam. My name is Spencer Holmes. This is my intimate friend and associate, Dr. Watson.
Hello.
You can speak as freely with him as me. I am glad to see that you have had a good sense to light the fire. Pray draw up to it, and I shall order you a cup of coffee from the concierge, for I observe that you are shivering.
It is not the cold which makes me shiver.
What then?
It is fear, sirs. It is terror. See what it has done to me.
My goodness, you do look quite gray with grief.
You must not fear. We shall soon set matters right. I have no doubt. You have come to me by bus this morning.
You know me, then?
No, but I see the second half of the return ticket in the palm of your left glove.
Oh, yes, of course. I started from home before 6 and reached the city at around 20 past, and I called you as quickly as I could find a public telephone. Sirs, I can stand this strain no longer. I shall go mad if it continues. I have no one to turn to.
We'll help you.
Yes, Watson, we will, but we should hear the poor woman's troubles first.
I have heard of you from a number of people who live near to us, to whom you have been of indispensable service, and come to plead for your assistance. Do you think that you can help me at least shed some little light on the terrible darkness that threatens to overtake me?
I think that we might see our way clear to lending a hand. Pray, tell me what is the matter, and spare me no details.
Alas, it is the very horror of my situation that I must admit that my fears are vague, and my suspicions depend on very minor evidence. But no one else will consider my torment. Those who I would normally ask for assistance consider my theories the fancies of a nervous woman.
There. Spencer is very good at finding the truth, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds.
Thank you, Doctor. That does help to calm my anxiety over the situation.
My pleasure, madam.
Mr. Holmes, perhaps once I have told you everything, you will be able to guide me best in deciding how I should navigate this terrible situation.
I am ever at your service. Please proceed.
My name is Helen Stoner, and I am living with my stepfather, who is the last survivor of one of the oldest Saxon families, the Roylotts.
The name is familiar to me. The family was once one of the richest in the country.
That is right. There were a good many scandals, though, and many terrible things happened in our estate before things seemed to finally calm down.
Until?
After my mother died, my stepfather became very distraught. She left us enough money that we were never want for anything, but he turned morose and would only come from his rooms from time to time, and then he would indulge in ferocious quarrels with whoever might cross his path. Violence of temper approaching mania have been hereditary in the men of the family, and in my stepfather's case it had, I believe, been intensified by a long stay in the tropics. He engaged in a series of disgraceful brawls which were, often as not, ended by the police, until at last he became the terror of the village, and people would flee should they see him strolling toward them on the path.
How dreadful.
And if that was only the worst of it, last week he hurled the gardener over a parapet and into a stream, and it was only by paying the man all of the money that I could bring together that I avoided another public spectacle.
The brute!
All right, Watson, let's not judge until we have all the evidence.
Holmes, can't you see the torment that this poor woman has faced?
I can hear it, Watson, but I suspect that there is more to her story.
I'm afraid he might have gone mad, Mr. Holmes. Given his penchant for Indian animals, he has at present a cheetah and a baboon which wander our grounds freely and are the torment of the local population.
There's nothing wrong with a few eccentric habits.
Holmes!
I will admit that the cheetah might be a bit much, Watson. Please continue, Miss Stoner.
Well, you can imagine that my poor sister Julia and I had no great pleasure in our lives. No servant would stay with us, and for a long time we have done all of the work of the house. We have an aunt, my mother's sister, and she was our only comfort until recently. We were allowed to go and visit her on occasions, and on one such visit my sister met a young man.
And how did your stepfather take to that?
They were, within a week of their introduction, engaged to be married, and my stepfather gave no objection. But within 2 weeks of their marriage day, something terrible happened, which has robbed me of my only companion.
You must be very precise as to the details of these next points, my dear.
It is easy for me to be so, for every event of that dreadful time is firmly situated in my memory. The manor house in which we live is quite old, and only one wing is now inhabited. The bedrooms in that wing are on the ground floor, the sitting rooms being in the control block of the buildings. Of these bedrooms, the first is my stepfather's, the second my sister's, and the third my own. There is no communication between them, but they all open into the same corridor. Do you have a clear picture of the place?
Perfectly so.
The windows of the 3 rooms open out upon the lawn. That fateful night my uncle had gone to his room early, though we knew that he had not gone to sleep, for my sister was troubled by the smell of strong Indian cigars, which it was his custom to smoke. She left her room and came to mine, and we talked for some time. I remember those last things she said to me quite clearly.
"Tell me, Helen,"
She said.
"have you ever heard anyone whistle in the dead of night?"
"Never," I replied.
"I suppose that you could not possibly whistle yourself in your sleep."
I thought she was having me on, but I indulged her and asked why she was so suddenly concerned with a whistling in the night.
"Because during the last few nights I have always, about 3 in the morning, heard a low, clear whistle. I am a light sleeper, and it has awakened me. I cannot tell where it came from. Perhaps from the next room, perhaps from the lawn. I thought I would just ask if you had heard it.
I dismissed her fears and mentioned that it was probably some of the wanderers that our stepfather often allowed to camp on our grounds, and assured her that everything would be fine. After that, I heard her go into her own room and lock the door.
Indeed. Did you always lock yourselves in at night?
Always.
Why?
I believe I mentioned the cheetah and the baboon. We only felt safe with the doors secured.
Quite. Please continue with your statement.
I could scarcely sleep that night as a result of some feeling of impending misfortune plagued me. My sister and I were twins, and you may well know how subtle are the links which bind two souls which are so closely connected.
I should like to consider such a phenomena, but I suspect that there is little bearing on your case. Please proceed.
The wind was howling outside, and it was raining, and suddenly, amidst all the noise, I heard the violent scream of a woman. I knew at once that it was my sister. I leapt from my bed, wrapped myself in a shawl, and ran into the corridor that connected our rooms, and at once I heard a clear whistle, like my sister described, and then a peculiar clanging sound coming from inside the house.
Could you recognize the noise if you heard it again?
It was like metal falling.
And the whistle, could you repeat it?
I think so. It sounded something like this.
That is most helpful. Please go on.
I ran along the passage and saw that my sister's door was unlocked. I was horror-stricken, not knowing what was about to come from the room. As I approached, I saw in the light from the dim corridor lamps, which we keep lit to avoid stumbling at night, I saw my sister, her face blanched with terror, her hands groping for help, her whole figure swaying to and fro like that of a drunkard. I ran to her and threw my arms around her, but at that moment her knees seemed to give way and she fell to the ground. She writhed as one who is in terrible pain, and her limbs were dreadfully convulsed. I thought that she had not recognized me, but as I bent over her, she suddenly shrieked out, "Oh, Helen, it was the band, the Speckled band!" She tried to say more, but could only stab her fingers into the air in the direction of our stepfather's room, and then she was overcome with another bout of convulsions. I dashed to find help, calling loudly for my stepfather, and he came from his room in his pajamas. When we reached my sister's side, she was unconscious, and though he tried to revive her with brandy and sent for medical help from the village, she slipped into a state of unconscious and died.
Are you quite certain about the metallic sound and the whistle, then? Could you swear to it?
The coroner asked the same question. As I said, it was raining quite prolifically, so I could have been deceived, but I am nearly certain that I heard the sounds as I described them to you.
Was your sister dressed?
No, she was in her nightdress, and in her right hand we found the charred stump of a match. Her left hand held the matchbox.
So she had struck the match and looked about before screaming. That is important. Did the coroner come to any conclusions?
He could not find any method, not the walls, windows, or chimneys, for they were all sealed, that would allow an intruder to visit my sister. The cause of death was a mystery to him.
What about poison?
The doctors examined her for it, but found none.
What do you think she died of, then?
It is my belief that she died of pure fear and nervous shock, though I cannot imagine what might have frightened her.
Were there wanderers on the grounds at the time?
Yes, there are nearly always some of them there.
What about her mention of the Speckled band?
I have thought that she might have been delirious, but there are many of the wanderers who wear spotted handkerchiefs, though I do not know if that is what she meant.
These are very deep waters. Is there more to the narrative?
Only that 2 years have passed since then, and my life has been until lately lonelier than ever. A month ago, a dear friend whom I have known for many years did me the honor of asking for my hand in marriage. His name is Percy Armitage.
And your stepfather has offered no opposition to the match?
None at all. But 2 days ago, some repairs were begun in the west wing, and my bedroom wall was broken by the builders. I have been made to move into the chamber where my sister died and sleep in her very bed.
That must be dreadful.
It is, but imagine my terror when last night, as I lay awake considering her fate, I suddenly heard in the silence of the night that same whistle which had been the herald of her death. I leapt from bed and lit a candle, but I could see nothing in the room.
Did you search the room completely?
No, But I could not sleep, so I dressed, and as soon as it was daylight, I made my way to the bus station and to this hotel where I might find some respite and seek your counsel.
You have done wisely, but have you told me everything?
Yes, everything.
You are attempting, for some reason that I cannot fathom, attempting to protect your stepfather.
Holmes, that's preposterous.
Yes. What do you mean?
Please allow me to move the lace of your glove.
I don't think that...
Good heavens! What has he done to you?
I say that these are the marks of your stepfather's hands, are they not?
They are, but he hardly knows his own strength.
Something must be done about him.
There are many more details that I should like to know before we get to that, but alas, we have not a moment to lose. If we were to come with you to your estate today, could you allow us to view your rooms without your stepfather's knowledge of our visit?
He did mention that he was coming to town today on some important business. He will likely be away all day, and I can easily keep the housekeeper out of the way.
Excellent. You're not averse to the trip, Watson?
Oh, by no means.
Good. Then we shall both come. What will you do now?
There are one or two things which I must finish before I return home. There is a bus which will have me home just before noon.
Then you may expect us early in the afternoon. I have a few small matters to attend to myself. Will you stay for breakfast?
I am already uplifted with hope at the prospect of your assistance. I really must be going. Please, you may use my room here as long as you like.
What do you make of all this, Watson?
It seems to me to be a most dark and sinister business.
Dark enough and sinister enough, but if the lady is correct that the floors and walls are sound and that the doors, window, and chimney are all sealed, then her sister must have been alone and locked in the room when she met her end.
I know how you like these locked room mysteries.
There are so few of them to tax my mental acumen that I've begun to believe that I should be resigned to only the one in all of my whole career.
Do you have a theory?
Many, but we'll have to see the rooms to make any sense of them. I was thinking that we should, but... What in the name of the devil?
I am Dr. Grimesby Roylott.
Indeed, Doctor. Pray, take a seat.
I will do nothing of the kind. My stepdaughter has been here. I have tracked her. What has she been saying to you?
It is a little cold for the time of the year.
What has she been saying to you?
But I have heard that the crocuses promise well.
Ha! You put me off, do you? I know you, you scoundrel. I have heard of you before. You are Holmes, the meddler. Holmes, the busybody. Holmes, the Metropolitan Police jack-in-office.
Your conversation is most entertaining. When you go, close the door, for there is a decided draft.
I will go when I have said my say. Don't you dare to meddle with my affairs. I know that Miss Stoner has been here. I tracked her. I am a dangerous man to fall foul of. See here.
What do you mean to do with that poker, sir?
See that you keep yourself out of my grip.
He seems a very amiable person. I'm not quite so bulky, but if he had remained, I might have shown him that my grip was not much more feeble than his own. Fancy his having the insolence to confound me with the official detective force. The incident gives zest to our investigation, however, and I only trust that our little friend will not suffer from her imprudence in allowing this brute to track her.
Indeed.
And now, Watson, we shall order breakfast, and afterward I shall walk down to the city centre, where I hope to get some data which may help us in this matter.
Excellent. Do see if they have any fresh cinnamon buns.
Gee, Doctor, was Spencer able to find out what happened to the girl's sister?
I'd like to tell you, but it seems that we've run out of time. I have to dash off to meet Spencer at the cemetery.
The cemetery? Another case?
He didn't say, but I imagine that I'll tell you about it if it turns out to be of any interest.
I hope so. But will you tell me how your investigation turned out next time we meet?
Indeed. Next week we can finish this particular tale.
I can't wait. Will you be able to come down from there now?
Yes, I haven't seen whatever caught my attention when I woke up while we've been talking, so it should be safe to get off the chair now.
Good. Well, I'll be off then. See you next week. Tonight's Watson Files adventure was written by Michael Helgens and directed by Scott Strosahl, and based on an original story by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Spencer Holmes and Dr. Watson were played by Michael Helgens and Greg Kilberger. Additional voices were provided by Steve Rimpici and Beverly Mead. Until next week, this is Craig Dahlen saying good night from Stroby Studios.
Indeed. Did you always lock yourselves in at night?
Always.
Why?
I believe I mentioned the cheetah and the baboon.
That's exactly what it says in there. Holmes is like, why did you lock yourselves in? And she's like, cheetah and a baboon.
They don't have thumbs. Shut the door. That must be dreadful. You can come on back to my place and I can put you up for a couple nights.
But I have heard that the crocuses promise well.
Crocuses.
Crocuses?
Crocuses?
I don't know.
Crocuses. It's a type of flower.
Okay. When you go, close the door, for there is a decided draught.
Draft.
No, draught. Draught was the correct word.
Draft?
In the book.
It's draft. That's just how they spell it.
Yeah, that's how it's pronounced.
Oh, it's pronounced
yes.
draft?
That used to be spelled that way. It's draft.
Oh.
Perhaps we need to buy you a dictionary.